Okay, welcome to Fresh Set of Downs. My name is Bruce Badgley, joined by my good friend Bob Long, and unfortunately, Dave Micah, our third member of our crew here, is on assignment. But Dave gave us his top five, so we can go through that. He'll be part of the show. But gosh, Bob, another great week of football in the books, right?
Without a doubt. Bruce, when you get to the first week of October here, unlike, you know, I guess more like the offensive lines of a lot of these high school teams that we cover, everybody's a little banged up. We're a little banged up today. No Dave Micah, so we'll have to pull a little bit extra weight here on the offensive line and push forward. But I think he's week to week. We should have him back next week, right?
Yeah, hopefully Dave will be back with us here next week. And scheduled to appear Coach Michael Milano from Downingtown West. Coach hopefully will be joining us throughout the broadcast here. Send him a note. And he is a Hall of Fame coach here in Pennsylvania, and Downingtown West off to a terrific undefeated start. So we hope that we'll have opportunity to talk to Coach Milano before too long here in the broadcast. But I'll tell you
Well,
what,
what a
Bob.
story to tell. Well, I mean, what a story to tell with that Downingtown West team, particularly going up against Coatesville. We won't spoil the whole thing, but my goodness, what a game that was. We knew that was a game of the week going in, and it delivered. And I'm really excited to talk to Coach about that.
Yeah, as am I, and obviously a lot of other great games that we had in our games of the week. So we're just going to jump right in to that. And right up on top there, obviously start with the game that you called there, St. Joe Prep, basically taking it to LaSalle College. But maybe the score, maybe not indicative really to how close this game was.
Um, I don't know, Bruce. I mean, in a way, yes. So LaSalle came in missing, I think, a combination of 6 or 7 guys on both sides of the ball combined there, and it was a challenge. I think the vast majority of those guys are going to be back next week, but that was certainly an issue. Particularly, lost some guys on the offensive line. Special teams was a concern. We saw that 2 punt blocks in the first half. St. Joe's Prep has, though, Bruce, regardless, even against full strength special teams units across the state and beyond. I would argue St. Joe's Prep has the best special teams unit in the state of Pennsylvania. So from that standpoint, they exerted their will there. LaSalle was good, for a little while. They hung in. They had an opportunity down 14-0 late in the second quarter to score, maybe hold St. Joe's Prep. That didn't end up happening. Couldn't score inside the 10. St. Joe's Prep scores twice again before the half, and that was kind of the difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's always when I watched your broadcast there, I thought it was very cool. There's really no other atmosphere like a game at Franklin Field, right?
Franklin Field is phenomenal, and I'll give the teams credit. They had really, really nice crowds, which is that's the only reason you have the game there in some ways, right? Under the lights, a facility that's been in place since 1895. It's the home of the Penn Relays, which is not just a national, but an international track and field event that takes place every April. The Penn Quakers have played football there forever. The Philadelphia Eagles played their home games there from 1960 through 1971. And even way back in the day, Penn baseball would play at Franklin Field. Now you think about the dimensions of a field like that. Well, one of the porches is going to be quite short. It happened to be the right field foul line, and down the fence there was a short porch. So they got creative, Bruce. And when the baseball teams were playing there, short of right center, from right center to the right field foul pole, a ball into the stands was a ground rule double, and you had to hit it into the second deck for it to be a home run. So lots of fun little tales of Franklin Field's past and Friday night's game. Just another notch in the belt there. As recently as 2 years ago, LaSalle had ended St. Joe's Prep, multi-year win streak, multi-year undefeated streak against either the Catholic League or anyone else in the state of Pennsylvania. That was just 2 years ago. Abdul Carter, who's playing at Penn State, and Sam Brown, who's running back at Rutgers, led the way for that LaSalle team. So a little bit of a different story here this Friday, but if both teams win out, which I expect them to do, they would play one another again the second weekend in November. If you're a LaSalle fan, the hope is you get all those guys healthy. It's still an uphill battle at that point, but it should be a little bit of a different game.
Yeah, and in another, Philadelphia Catholic League, I was surprised of the score, but Newman Goretti tops Bonner Prendy 6-0. That was the score was surprising. Maybe not Goretti, winning the game, but only 6-0. Both of these teams kind of known to put some points on the board.
I suppose, unless it's Newman Goretti in the state championship.
Yeah. You still there, Bob? I think I lost my buddy Bob. So we're going to stick with the program and see if we can't get Bob back. He said he was having some internet issues. So can you hear me, Bob? Maybe I'll have to get back there. But yeah, I'm just going to go on with the Newman Goretti Bonner Prendy. And very surprising that it was only 6-0. Not that Goretti wasn't expected to win that game, but really surprised at that particular score. Looks like Bob's going to try and get back on the program. Just one of those nights of podcasting here. But let's talk a little bit about, let's move on to District 11. Typically that's our buddy Dave Micah's home turf, but Southern Lehigh, Cade Sawyer had 4 touchdowns in a 47-0 rout of Saucon Valley. And Southern Lehigh just continues on their great season. Interesting game in 1A. Muncie 29, South Williamsport 28 in overtime. That game came down to a 2-point conversion make for Muncie to pull that one out. Just an incredible game. One that obviously both of those teams likely to meet up with one another again in the postseason. And the game that we were talking about, and we were hoping to have Coach Milano join us here, and hopefully he will before the end of the program. Downingtown West wins 21-14 over Coatesville. This is a very emotional game. This was a game last year that, because of some threats, got canceled at the last minute. There was a lot of emotions related to that, but unfortunately that game had to be canceled last year. They played it this year for the first time since 2019. Downingtown West comes out on top 21-14. And in another game, it was very I think it went the way that everybody thought it was, but maybe not the way it thought it was. And that is Springford actually really showing some strong defense and coming up with the win. Here we go. I think we're trying to get Bob back here.
Bruce, I apologize. I don't know what happened there. I'm on cell service for right now, and I think you might be letting me in back on the computer.
Yeah, there we go. Not entirely sure how everything was going there, but like I was saying, it always happens on a podcast, right? Your guest is late, and then you lose your partner there. But It
Well,
is what it
so
is,
you
man.
with
That's
the
live
offensive
live
line,
TV.
with the offensive line analogy that I led with, maybe you're actually the quarterback and Dave and I are on the offensive line and we just let a free rush come and get you. So sorry about that.
Well, that's okay. That's not a problem. I was continuing on, with that. So I'm just going to bring back our
Yep.
key week 7 results, again. And I talked a little bit about Bonner and Goretti there. Southern Lehigh with really a drubbing of Saucon Valley, and Cade Sawyer had 4 touchdowns in that game to really lead Southern Lehigh in that game. Any thoughts about the Southern Lehigh Saucon Valley other than Southern Lehigh, really just keeps on rolling?
Special season brewing up there. It's a team that we often see, as you know, Bruce, after the regular season, trying to make a deep run. Seems like a pretty special team up there. Again, I think you and I both defer a little bit to Dave in terms of this particular area of the state of Pennsylvania, but one to keep your eye on because, and I don't know if this result in general that puts you over the top, but the body of work that this team has established and the legacy of this particular program, some of the returning guys that are now in their junior and senior seasons, a team to watch coming out of that district, I think, for sure.
Yeah, and this Muncie South Williamsport game didn't disappoint. It was 29-28 in overtime and a 2-point conversion to win it from Muncie. I mean, that's how you want it. You want it to come right down to it. These two teams that are probably going to meet in the postseason, quite honestly, because both have
Yeah,
pretty special years.
they do. And maybe give a little more context on this matchup in general. I know some of the folks that may follow what I do down in Philadelphia may not know quite as much about this matchup, this rivalry, the possibility to meet in the playoffs.
Yeah, they're both in the same district there. And sometimes you get these matchups and they have this rivalry game in the season, and then if they're in the same district and the same classification, it almost seems a little anticlimactic because really the winner go home game is going to be in November, and
Yeah.
but still a lot on the line, and obviously didn't disappoint. But then again, too, hopefully we'll have a chance to talk to Coach Milano about this big win, 21-14 over Coatesville. I touched on the fact that last year, this is obviously a highly charged emotional game. And last year, this game actually got canceled because of, threats and what have you. So, getting this game back going and all the emotions surrounding it, and a big win, 21-14, right, Bob?
A great win. It reminds you, they have a tremendous starting quarterback that's going to go play at the next level. It reminds you back to the year 2019 when Downingtown West was playing a really good Coatesville team, and another soon-to-be college quarterback, Will Howard, was playing. That was the last time that Downingtown West actually beat this Coatesville team, and it feels so sweet for Downingtown West. They keep the unblemished record. Coatesville has the 2 losses, and it feels like in the Chestnut League that Coatesville, at least in recent years, has been the standard, the litmus test. If you're taking down Coatesville on a Friday underneath the lights, you know that you have something there in District 1 and a team that has a chance to go win the whole thing. I think that's what Downingtown can kind of recalibrate and reset its sights on right now.
Yeah, and one of the things that I was going to ask Coach Milano about, and hopefully we'll still have him yet, but sometimes there's only so much emotion in a team, throughout a year, and this is a very emotional game with Coatesville. They've got an emotional, highly charged game that they have, at the end of the season with the rival, and then you're going off and you're playing in District 1. I mean, a 4-round, district playoff. I mean, it's one that, it's amazing, but I think emotionally, sometimes schedules rather than physically kind of weigh on a team. And, fingers crossed that Downingtown West is going to have, all the emotion that they need to pull through a pretty tough schedule.
It is a tough schedule. I mean, the hope is that those games are spread out relatively, standardized there, that you have 2 or 3 weeks in between each of those games. Still high school kids. They have boundless energy that, you and I wouldn't know, or at least have to cull deep into our memories to try to remember. That would only be the only thing there, is you have a shortened season compared to the college level, certainly compared to the professional level. And it's a borderline sprint, as we always talk about the high school football season. The fact that we are 3 weeks away from the end of the regular season in most leagues is incredible. It's incredible. So teams are starting to taper and think about postseason at this point. Of course, while scratching every Friday night to, try to win the big one. But I think these Downingtown West kids, and really most kids in this situation, they're going to be able to handle it. By the time it's mid-November, you're either running on fumes at that point as one of the 16 or 8 or 4 or 2 teams to play in your respective classification by that point, or you're done. So, got to get up early in the morning, and I think this particular team will be ready to have this be a springboard rather than a drain of emotion.
Yeah, and Springford still riding high. Their only loss was at Manheim Township earlier this year, and it's Matt Zollers, quarterback for Springford. Really, he's another top flight quarterback with a lot of offers, and it shows because he's really leading this team to a very good season, right?
Yeah, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but the name seems extremely familiar, and I think it's because he played a role on that basketball team that went all the way to the state semifinal last year. So good for him. A lot of multi-sport athletes. We talked to the head basketball coach, Joe Dempsey, about that leading up to that state semifinal game. And Springford is on the come up right now across multiple sports. You might remember Perk Valley was really that upstart team last year out of District 1 in that particular league. Well, this year, Springford is right there, and this is a marquee win. There's no other way to state it. And again, like you talk about positioning, right? And what are each of these wins for each of these teams? What does it position them to do? Well, it positions Springford right at the top, right near the top, and an opportunity to accomplish every one of their goals into November and possibly even into December.
Yeah, absolutely. And a team that we saw last December, Cocalico, we saw them in the state semifinal last year, lose to the eventual champion Pine Richland. But this year they've got it cranking, early on. They've had everything clicking on all cylinders all season. They've only got one loss. That was the opening week. And they beat a very good Wyomissing team. Now, granted, that's a 5A team over a 3A team, but these are section opponents. And I'll tell you what, Cocalico dominated it. And Aaron Longenecker, I mean, he's just Mr. Everything for Cocalico so far this year.
He sure is. They have picked up where they left off at the end of last year. It was a late run coming out of that 12 seed, as you know, in District 3 to come out and win the district. Unbelievable. Well, maybe a little bit more believable because you see they're keeping up their end of the bargain this year. What a fascinating game to watch.
Bruce. Yeah, I'm going to pick up the phone here real quick, Bob.
Of course. Well,
hey,
for me, a fascinating, and maybe just throw yourself on mute there, Bruce.
No worries.
Bruce, maybe throw yourself on mute. I'm not sure he's going to be able to do that, so you're just going to have to hang in there with me. But a fascinating game to watch because
we've
of
got
the
plenty of time,
playing style
try
of
and
these
get in,
two teams.
And we'll get you on.
Well,
okay, just give me 1 second. We'll get you. I'm going to get you on here, and we'll get you in.
Well,
Okay,
as
well,
you
we'll see you on
heard,
the broadcast.
as you're hearing, Bruce
So-
has Mike Milano, which is great. I would have asked you to put yourself on mute, maybe in a perfect world, but the good news is our viewers got to hear every word, and that was that Mike's going to make his way onto the broadcast here, Bruce.
Wow, fantastic. And hopefully Mike can get his camera going there.
I'm trying.
No worries. Oh, wow. I tell you, Mike, a kind of a Hall of Fame effort here to get on the broadcast.
I've got a school computer. It just gets different. I'm looking here. I'm trying to get the video on.
It's probably going to be maybe you see the button there, bottom left.
Yeah, it says video. I mean, it says it's on video. Turn off, whatever, hide.
Possible one of those school computers doesn't have a video camera there, Bruce.
Oh, that's okay.
It told me I had to update with my IT person.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's just do this radio.
I
And
feel
that
bad. It's a crazy day.
actually, it's been a crazy show, Mike. I mean, I lost Bob for a while and what have you. But anyway, listen, thank you for the yeoman's effort, in joining the program. We really appreciate it.
Sure.
Bob, you got a question for Coach Milano?
Well, first, I want to congratulate you, Coach, on a tremendous effort in victory last weekend. A great game. I know to an extent what that rivalry means in your league, but perhaps you could tell us, the viewers, in your own words, from so many bouts against Coatesville, what that matchup means to the folks in Downingtown.
Well, I'm probably the oldest coach in District 1 right now. And I try and give my kids all the history. I remember being 5 years old and watching Billy Joe, who went on to be the AFL Rookie of the Year with the Denver Broncos, play against a guy in Downingtown named Jabbo Lee in 1958. So I've been seeing Coatesville Downingtown games for a long, long time. It was a Thanksgiving rivalry for years until the district playoffs kicked in. And certainly we've had some wars with them over the years.
Wow, that's great, Coach. And I'll tell you what I wanted to ask you, and obviously, football being an emotional game, you've just coaches take a lot of time and effort in making sure that their teams are physically prepared for a season, and obviously, you adjust your practice schedule accordingly. But how do you take into account the emotional aspect of playing a long season and playing emotional games like you had with Downingtown, and then you've got obviously other conference games coming up, and then going into a postseason?
Well, it's the emotions that keep me in it. I love it. There's nothing like it. I try and tell all my all my friends, my golfing buddies, I get asked all the time, how long are you going to do this thing? Because I've been doing this my 31st year as a head coach. And I tell them I can't find that feeling anywhere else. I just can't. It's amazing. The emotions are the amazing part, the relationships, and the emotions on game night. It's just incredible. It's a rush you can't get doing anything else.
And it's a special place you guys play as well, Cottonmire Stadium.
Yeah.
I'm sure that adds to the allure of it and the energy that the fans bring.
Yeah, I try and make my kids understand how blessed they are to play in that environment. Like, our games with Coatesville and the Downingtown East, Downingtown West games are just unbelievable. And they're blessed, and I need them to know it. We play other places, and, we'll play on Saturday morning at 11 o'clock this week, and it won't be anything like what we just had. And so they'll get a chance to see the polar opposite of what they just experienced. But it is. Cottonmire is amazing, and the emotions are, I don't know, to me, that's the draw.
It is. I think that for Bob and myself, I'll just speak for myself, and it's the relationships. It is, the opportunity to to work with coaches such as yourself, to work with players, to work with families. Oh my gosh, hey, there is a picture
I
that we
might.
see.
I don't know what it's a picture of. It's taking a shot of the ceiling. It's pretty crazy, but
Yeah, right.
I think I see it.
There he is.
Oh my God, yeah. Now we're upside down.
Man, boys, I'll tell you, I don't know what's going on here. It's insane. I don't. There's a light on. I can't tell you what's happening here.
Well,
You're close.
yeah,
There
you're
he
getting
is.
close.
I mean, I'm twisting this thing around. You can't imagine what I'm doing here. It's insane. There you go. That's about as good
There
as
it
I can
is. Wow, you're walking. I know you.
Boys, I'm sorry, man.
That's
okay. That's okay. Feels like
That's
Night at the Roxbury here, Bruce?
It's like a NASA mission or something, I think. Anyway, that's
Yeah.
about as good as I can do.
Wow,
great.
that's
Perfect.
It is great. It gets everybody, a picture of you and what have you. But of all, obviously, you've been coaching here a long time. You're a Hall of Famer. Is there any one particular game that maybe stands out in your career thus far that is, that just kind of sticks in your mind in every off season and every regular season, that just, had more emotions than any other?
I tell this story. The very first Downingtown East, Downingtown West game, I'd already been a head coach for 10 years. And I'll just say that the kids that remained in Downingtown, I'm a Downingtown guy. I was coaching at Penncrest High School in Delaware County for 8 years. And I got the job, and I was I was not the popular choice by the kids on that team. They thought they had one of their assistants who was going to get the job. In the very first East-West game, we won 13-10. East missed a field goal at the buzzer. And I remember sitting on the bench after the game, and I couldn't breathe. I just felt like the game was like, I don't know, not vindication, but it kind of cemented the fact that I could coach in Downingtown. I can't explain it right, but I'll remember that feeling forever. I just will. And we've had some great moments. I've been lucky enough to win a couple district championships, one at Unionville, and then one most recently here in Downingtown 6A. And those games were awesome. But that first East-West game with people tailgating from noon until game time, the whole town was out, and I'm a Downingtown kid. It was pretty amazing.
Wow.
What year was that, Coach? And that's not just not to quiz you, but like roundabouts. When was that?
Yeah, it's 2003. 2003 was the very first East-West game. So we played this will be the 21st this year.
That's great.
And this year, obviously, you've had a great start to the season. What do you contribute really to the success of the team this year?
Well, it's always kids driven, that. And when you have kids, you have a chance. And I've got some great kids. We went 9-2 last year, and it was hard to explain. We lost to Perk Valley early in the year. My quarterback had COVID. Quinn Hennicle, you know about Quinn. Mm-hmm. Quinn's amazing. Yeah. He's going to go to Old Dominion. And Quinn had COVID, and we had a 10th grade kid step in, and we lost by a point. We missed an extra point. And then late in the year, we had a young guy on the team who's still with us, Dean Hangy, who had transferred from back to Downingtown from Malvern earlier, and the PIAA deemed him ineligible for the playoffs, and we lost to Downingtown East. We beat them the first time and lost to them in the playoffs the second time. So those kids have been through the wars and felt like they really hadn't been beaten as a group, So that was kind of their motto. They worked really hard, from January on, and they deserve the accolades they're getting, and they deserve the success that they're having right now.
Yeah, obviously a group that's played together and really, just cohesive group. And obviously we talk about that all the time, in football. But, what is the secret to get these guys to buy in, to work as a team? That's obviously, the big proponent of why coaches are successful. How do you do that? How do you get these guys mold together as one?
Again, I say this all the time too. So I'm an old guy, and I get from my older friends all the time, man, these kids today, I hear it all the time, these kids today. And I brag. I'm like, I don't know what kids today you're talking about. The kids I have are motivated. And Downingtown's been a football community long before I started coaching here, and it will be long after I'm gone, I'm sure. The kids I get are highly motivated. They want to plan for success. They tell me how to get where I want to get. They want discipline. They want rules. They just are. They're great, hardworking kids, and so that's a culture that, as I said, that preceded me, and it'll go on long after I'm gone, I'm sure. So I'm just lucky to be in this environment.
And a big part of a strong culture in a lot of cases as well, Coach, is when folks graduate from successful teams and then continue to give back, whether coming back when they have bye weeks at the next level to be on campus, whether just staying in touch with the folks that they played with who were underclassmen, now are upperclassmen, and kind of giving that guidance. Do you have kids that are playing at the college level or have moved on to the next stage of their life, still talking to the current members on the team, kind of serving as that liaison for them?
Yeah. I mean, Drew Shelton's at Penn State right now. Drew graduated in 20. He was here Friday night. We took 20 some kids down to Villanova 2 weeks ago. Sean Pelkison, who was at Georgia Southern, is now at Rhode Island. We took a bunch of kids to go see them play at Villanova. So yeah, those connections are strong. Those guys come back. They talk to my kids. Again, it's a culture that's been around for a long time. We talk all the time about having the kids come back in their Letterman's jackets and be on the sidelines. We had a few the other night, and when we play East Week 10, there'll be quite a few on the sidelines.
And one guy I wanted to ask about in particular was Will Howard, who Bruce and I last year and for the last couple of years, we've been covering the Maxwell Football Club Awards. Of course, Will honored last year. What can you say about what he did while he was on campus and how he's continued to represent Downingtown West at the next level?
Well, he's a great ambassador. He really is. I laughingly tell this story. If I was playing on his team, he's the kid I would have wanted to hate. He's best athlete in the school, one of the smartest kids in the school, probably had the prettiest girls in the school, nice cars, the whole deal. But he was just such a wonderful kid. There's no way. I don't know anybody that dislikes Will Howard. We talk a bunch. He did a camp for the kids in our community here over the summer. Brought a couple of his K-State boys and a couple of Penn State guys because Drew was here too. Again, he's just a great ambassador, not just for Downingtown, but for himself and his family. And we have I reluctantly call him his little brother because Ryan's 6'7", 315. He's also going to go out to K-State. And it's just a great family.
Yeah, we actually had Ryan on the red carpet, Bob, didn't we?
We sure did. Yep, great young man. It was great to meet him and the family last February, March timeframe.
Yep.
Yeah. So looking forward to the rest of the season, Coach, how do you feel about this group and what are going to be some of the secrets to your success?
Again, continued hard work, and we don't get a break. We got to get down to Chester this Saturday, as I said, and play 11 o'clock in the morning, and they're 6-1. We had a real battle with them here last year. They've got a gunslinger quarterback who's a sophomore and some great skill kids around them. And then we know, week 10 is East-West, and they're undefeated, and hopefully we're both undefeated when we meet. That's only ever happened once before. That happened in 2015, and Kottmeyer was rocking that night. We came out on the short end of a 20-14 that night. It was tough. But anyway, that's kind of what we're looking at. The kids love playing in those big games, and they know for sure we have a couple in front, and then we'll see what happens in the playoffs.
Well, I tell you what, thank you so much. Obviously, I think the program and you went through a lot to, get you, on the air or whatever like that. But listen, thank you very much for, taking time out of a busy schedule to, talk about your team. And I tell you what, best of luck the rest of the season here. It's going to be a special one. So I'll look forward to watching you guys perform.
Hey, thanks. And again, I apologize. The good news, and I'll finish, my young guy was discharged from the hospital we had to backboard them, get them off, and that's always scary as all get out. Paoli Hospital Trauma Center is amazing. They did a great job with him, and hopefully he's back in action soon.
Well, good.
Wow, we'll be thinking about the young man. Absolutely, Coach.
We sure will. Thanks a lot, Coach. You can just go ahead and exit out, and Bob and I will continue. We'll plug away. We've met a lot of challenges. We'll continue to forge on ahead. Thanks a lot, Coach.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
All right, take care now.
We'll see you down the road.
Yep, take care.
Bye now. Okay.
All right, Bruce, that was great.
Yeah, that was, he is such a great guy, and, such history involved in Down West, but, it's very rare that you get an opportunity to talk to a Hall of Fame coach, and you can see why Coach Milano was a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, honestly, my first takeaway was what we learned at the end. I don't know if you were aware of that prior, but I certainly was not. Sounds like a young man got seriously injured in practice, and that they had the great people he mentioned the Paoli Trauma Center taking care of him. So I don't know all the details there. Certainly, we want to give them all the privacy in the world, but you want to offer your thoughts and prayers anytime something like that happens. It's a wonderful sport, but it can be a dangerous sport at times. And the hope is that he is okay.
Yeah. It did. It sounded like, things were improving there. So, that's very good. All right. Well, I tell you what, we're going to talk about some power rankings. I thought we would talk about the power rankings of kind of the areas that, we're familiar with. Obviously, Dave is much more familiar with, District 11, 4, 2, and whatever like that. So I thought tonight we would just stick and talk about the power rankings, just kind of give a sneak peek to the teams in the area that are looking to make the playoffs. So you can probably see the District 3 power rankings there, right, Bob?
I got them. Absolutely.
All right. And we will put the District 1 rankings up there as well. And, some of these teams, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier, but there's a good portion of these teams, obviously, already that have kind of got their ticket punched, with 16 teams making it in 6A and 5A from District 1 into the postseason. I mean, obviously the teams at 7-0, look at that. There's 4 teams undefeated in District 1, CB West, Downingtown West, CB South, and Souderton.
Yeah.
Springford 6-1, Downingtown East 6-0. So most likely all of those teams are kind of playing for seeding positions, right?
I would agree. CB West looked great. Got a chance to see a few minutes of that game. Really strong team this year. A long way to go here, but you're right. It is about seeding for these teams. What gets really interesting is, the Garnet Valleys of the world. They dropped a game to 5A Strathaven. Really strong team, by the way, Strathaven. But, that drops them to 5-2. Perk Valley, who was the upstart team last year, 5-2. And look at all these teams. Coatesville is right there. Wissahickon. Again, you mentioned 16 teams. It does feel like most of those teams, short of a few consecutive losses, will be okay. But there's some really good teams in the meat of that, 5 through 12.
Yeah, Quakertown as well. They've had good seasons the last couple, kind of on the cusp there. Teams that, I think you've seen North Penn, right? And
I've seen North Penn.
And so kind of
CB East is interesting because they
Yeah.
have some talent. Mike Carroll, a transfer who's a big time recruit on the offensive line for many different programs, combined with a pretty decent core there. That's a team that could take a jump, but I think they have a difficult schedule coming home. Penn Ridge played Pennsbury this past weekend. That was an interesting game as well, down to the final minute. Actually, a play where there was 4th and 5 or so, up 1. Football was caught, could have walked into the end zone, went down at the 1, a la Brian Westbrook from years past, basically to be able to run out the clock. A really good play there. Yeah, it's wide open, Bruce. But there were
Yeah.
some big games this past weekend and big games coming up to help determine things.
Yeah, absolutely. And in 5A, you were talking about Strathaven remain undefeated with that big win that you were talking about.
In control
Yeah.
the entire contest by and large. Now again, Garnet Valley made it closer late, but I don't believe that Strathaven ever relinquished the lead. That's a legit football team. You see Chester on there. They're going to play Downingtown West this weekend, as we just talked about with Mike Milano. That's a very good team. You know, Marple Newtown, they got a big game this weekend. I think it's Strathaven.
It is. Yeah, we're gonna talk about that game. So
yeah. So some
in the
great
look
teams
ahead.
there as well.
Yeah, Westchester Ruston, who was off to a good start, and their only loss, I think, was at Coatesville. So these 5A teams, the unfortunate thing is a lot of time that they're having to cross over and play this, those 6A opponents. And there's a reason why there's classifications. And sometimes it's really difficult to play a really tough team, moving up there. And the same thing, there are 16 teams that make the postseason, and it is quite the mosh pit from number 9 seed all the way down to number 16 there. So that could really go any other way. You don't want to take anything away from Westchester, Henderson, Upper Marion, and Great Valley too, because putting together a hot streak couple with a few losses could get them right back in.
Yeah, it could. I think this bracket, again, if I had to put my finger on the pulse, I think it might be a little more top heavy than 6A. I think it's pretty well established, those top 3 or 4 teams that we talked about. You get into the Hatboro Horshams, the Kennetts, the Harritons, solid programs, but going to be really difficult to compete with the Strathaven when you get to that seeding.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And in 4A, Pope John Paul II, wow. I mean, on fire, as they always are. One of the top teams in 4A in the entire state, forgetting about, District 1.
Sure.
And Bishop Shanahan.
And just not that many small schools, by the way. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't even call 4A small, but just not that many small schools in District 1. You can see the difference, how quickly the numbers drop off.
Yeah, absolutely.
PJP, I think, is the runaway favorite there. But again, Shanahan, a very proud program, Pottstown. Again, somebody's got to knock off PJP.
Shanahan just plays a murderer's row of a schedule for a 4A team. I mean,
they sure
do. They play, it seems like all 5 and 6A opponents. Well, let's jump over to District 3 and, Steel High. Obviously, they're one of the top teams in 1A in the state. They're obviously the top team in 1A in District 3 because there's really only 3 teams. So not a lot of small schools in District 3 either, but they're kind of waltzing their way into the postseason, as quite honestly they usually do in 1A here in District 3. Surprisingly, in 2A, Anvil Cleona, who has had a really a good season, they're ranked, a little bit higher than Trinity. Now 4 teams make it in AA in District 3. So really, Anvil, Cleona, Trinity, DeLone Catholic, Camp Hill, that looks like that's going to be it. I don't think that we're going to see much change in that. As we kind of move on. 3A,
you know how much I like that Trinity team, though. Would not be surprised to see you and me strapping on the headsets to see Trinity play in Cumberland Valley later this year.
And my Penn Live game this week is Trinity and Camp Hill. So, a couple of the top teams in 2A strapping it up this week. And I'll get a firsthand look at that Trinity team just to see what they're like. And I'm looking forward to that. In 3A, you can see West Perry, a team that I've obviously been pretty, if anybody's watched me all year long, I felt that West Perry was probably maybe the most underrated team in the state of Pennsylvania. I think that that's kind of wearing off because they're undefeated. Wyomissing, Schuylkill Valley, Lancaster Catholic, those teams at 6-1. Now, only I believe 6 teams make it from, and I have to go back. Yeah, 6 teams make it in 3A in District 3. It's tough to memorize how many teams that go by each particular classification here. But right now, Berks Catholic on the outside looking in, and which is a little bit different for them. But with still 3 games to go, I think that battle for the final playoff spot will probably be between Littlestown and Berks Catholic. And so what do you think about Wyomissing down the stretch, Bob? I mean, you've been pretty high on them all year.
Have been high on Wyomissing. It comes down to the line of scrimmage when you're talking about Wyomissing and that very unique offense that they play. Bob Wolfram's done a great job for so many years there. They've represented District 3 in a tremendous way at the state level, getting to multiple state finals in a row. Last year, they lost in the state semifinal to Newman Goretti. And we saw them rolling through the first portion of that schedule. And then they got hit with a team in Cocalico that is every bit as big and strong on the line, if not more so. They run a unique running heavy offense, just like Wyomissing did, and it was just a bigger version of themselves, and they got beat pretty good. It was 34-7, and they scored in the final minutes. Funny enough, a good reminder for us, Bruce, when we're on the air, I learned or relearned, kind of reinforced, that you cannot advance a successfully recovered onside kick. They hooched a kick, and it was recovered Wyomissing and actually went untouched into the end zone, but they were unable to advance an onside kick. It would have made the game somewhat interesting, would have made it 34-20 with just a few minutes, a minute or two left in the contest, but it was taken back to the spot. Nonetheless, that was the final, 34-14, and for all but the last 2 minutes, it was very much dominated by Cocalico. A big surge in the second and mostly third quarter was the difference there. Still a tremendous team. They're still going to out-beef and out-strength and out-tough most of the teams on their road throughout the state playoffs. So I expect another deep run. The question is, can they take the top off when it's needed, or can they just out-tough everyone in AAA to bring home that elusive state championship?
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, the 3A is a little bit different insofar as it very much kind of encompasses the whole state. I think ultimately the District 3 champ would eventually go through. In fact, I think the District 12 champ, that's who kind of took care of him. Goretti was who knocked them out of the state tournament last year. So
that's correct. Now, Wyomissing got Goretti the year before that, so it could be the third consecutive.
Yeah, that's something to take a look at 3A in the eastern part of the state. And in 4A, the defending state champions look every bit of the defending state champions. They have just reloaded. We talked to Coach Jeff Wechter last week on the program. He seems to be very pleased with having reloaded his offensive line. And boy, I tell you what, they're looking every bit the part. I've seen McDevitt twice. You've seen him against LaSalle. I mean, what do you think about McDevitt?
Going to be tough for any 4A team to beat them. Period.
Yeah.
Aliquippa out west, so they're looking their chops. They want another shot at them, but Bishop McDevitt returns most of the skill players, none of the offensive line, but a lot of the defensive side of the ball. They're really good. Stone Saunders, a year older. Rico Scott, a stud. Chase Regan, great player. Figuring it out at running back. It's a tremendous team. Now, Twin Valley is another team I'd like to talk about because they had that fantastic win over Garden Spot this past weekend. Keeps them undefeated. That's a great team. It's an uphill battle if and when they face Bishop McDevitt, however.
Yeah, clearly. And they survived, quite honestly, 5 turnovers and a missed field goal at the gun to win that game against Garden Spot. But Brett Myers, the coach, what a pedigree there at Twin Valley. I mean, he took Middletown to 3 consecutive state championships in 3A. So Coach Myers really knows how to put together teams. But 4A just loaded in District 3. Mannheim Central, LS's only loss is to Cocalico as well. So that's a pretty good. East Pennsboro's had a great season. Unfortunately, they lost their first game of the year last year at Northern York. My man Mill Dog 37 there over at Northern York there, Bill Miller, they put it to him last week. So, but Susquehanna Township, I can't say that 4A is wide open in District 3 because Bishop McDevitt the prohibitive favorite. But I tell you what, there's such quality in 4A in the district. It's just pretty incredible, quite honestly. And let's just kind of quickly move down into 5A, and not the usual suspects at the top of the board here with New Oxford and Hershey, both with fine seasons, but Cedar Cliff, Cocalico, Exeter.
Why is that? I mean, maybe this is a whole separate podcast. I get it, power ratings, but I also don't get it at all. I mean, Exeter. Why is Exeter 5th?
It basically is the rating, and the rating is the combination of not only your victories but the strength of schedule of your opponent. So technically, even if you lost the game, you could actually go up in ranking if the winning percentages of your opponents go up, which creates strength of schedule.
I mean, yeah. So you tell me, like, is Exeter worried about this? Come on, they can't be worried about this, right? They got a great season going. They got tremendous players. They're coming off 2 fantastic groups of players and good seasons the last 2 years.
Yeah,
they're fine, right? They're right where they need to be.
They're fine. I mean, what's really wild is I do 2 podcasts, both with guys who their regions don't use power rankings to determine playoff seeding. So sometimes it's difficult to explain.
Yeah,
but,
I can only imagine why those districts don't use power rankings.
Well, but that's the great part about these podcasts. Now, all these people, like in District 12 and District 7, are learning about, power rankings, and, they're worried about head-to-head games and conference games and what have you.
How silly of us.
How silly. How silly of you. Yeah, like your preseason schedule in the WPIAL doesn't really matter because it's only based on conference games. So,
yeah.
But anyway, 12 teams make it in 5A. Gettysburg and Governor Mifflin on the way on the outs right now. Dover having a fine season. They could possibly get in.
So tell me quickly about Solanco. What happened to them? Because they had a dream season last year.
They did. They lost an awful lot. And the function of a tough schedule too. They play in the same section as I believe Mannheim Central. No, I take that back. They're in section 3, but a tough conference schedule in Lancaster Lebanon League. Plus they lost an awful lot there, and they've just had kind of a tough go of it here. But in 6A, Mannheim Township, they've reigned supreme. You saw, that they gave Springford their only loss. They gave Harrisburg their only loss. So those are 2 quality wins for Mannheim Township. I mean, we'll get into the top 5. You obviously like Mannheim Township a lot. But I'll tell you what, it's going to be a real dogfight in the postseason there. Harrisburg, Central York. York High's only loss was to Harrisburg. It was kind of a drubbing, but they're having a fine season. and kind of on the out looking in, Chambersburg and Central Dauphin East right now, but they're all very close. It's really going to depend on, quite honestly, the amazing thing about power ranking here is that you're relying on the teams that you've played to win games. And that ultimately is what gets you in the playoffs. So, to help your strength of schedule. So,
I like that Township team. I like that Harrisburg team, but a lot of tremendous talent in that group right there. Again, it's almost too early to, maybe not. Maybe this is the non-power ranking guy. It feels too early to be kind of prognosticating, but perhaps not. In a world of power ratings, maybe you need to be thinking about it already.
Well, that's in my blood. That's District 3. I mean, we're scoreboard watching every single week now, because it's not only your game, it's everybody you've played's game is just as important as the game that you're playing yourself, at least for the fans anyway. You have to hope that if you're Cumberland Valley, that every team that you played wins, because if that happens and you win your game, well, your power ranking continues to go up. And that's the important part.
Yep.
So there we go. Power rankings be damned. But that's how it is here at District 3 and District 1. So next week we'll have Dave back and we'll go through some of the other power rankings, as well. So why don't we take a look at what's down the road here for games in week 8, Bob? What do you think?
Great. Let's do it. We'll fly through it.
But
we'll
actually we forgot our power rankings here. So we've got to do I forgot our power rankings here too. So let's get our small school power rankings in here before we get too far down the road.
My quick comment here, most of this is staying the same for me. Why I'm missing was in my number 1 spot. It's not because they lost to a 5A team. It's how they lost to Co-Calico, but still think that's a team that's going to be there in late November, early December. So they've earned the right to stay again, for whatever that's worth. I mean, who am I, right? But if you ask me to put together a small school top 5, they're going to stay in it.
Yeah, and that's kind of the same way I feel. I mean, they lost to a 5A school. I mean, they didn't lose to a small school. It's a loss, and they got penalized for that. And but beyond that, obviously for me, the team that kind of bumped up a lot, obviously West Perry, which I was just talking about. Dave's got Southern Columbia, Steel High, Canton area, Troy, Lackawanna Trail. Now Dave does his with the website and what have you. So his is a little bit different. I'm gonna quickly run down Dave's kind of mid schools, which is 4A, 3A, before we get to our large school. But McDevitt, John Paul II, and Wyomissing area, kind of the top 3. So quickly, let's move it along here and get over to the big schools. And let me here we go. First set of downs, big school. Here we go. So talk a little bit about your top 5 there.
Sure. St. Joe's Prep does nothing to dissuade me. Big win over LaSalle. They will go into the postseason undefeated and have every expectation to win another state championship. I still go McDevitt over Imhotep. That's my coin toss. Malvern Prep is a school that nobody else is throwing on the list. I hope the rules of engagement are okay, that I put an Interact team on there, but
absolutely
so talented. Got to see them in person. Imhotep beat them. Malvern Prep had a lead at one point in that game. It was a great contest all the way to the end. I think they're right there. And boy, that would be a fun team to see in a state tournament. And then Manheim Township, we saw them at the top of the vaunted power ratings earlier. So they're hanging in there, and very deserving top 5 or number 5 spot.
Yeah, I think there are distinctive differences between obviously your and my top 5. I've got CB West at number 2. You don't even have them. Parkland in there, which is not in yours, but it is what it is. That's a tough call.
CB West is number 2.
Yeah, They're
Yeah. Okay.
they're moving on up. So we'll see. I mean, obviously we'll see how that goes. And then quickly, let's go to our week 8 key games. And I guess we're good because it really isn't a key game that Penn State has this week. So I don't think there's much reason to talk too much
This
about
is
Penn State.
Yeah, this is the Adam Brenneman Bowl because Adam was in the same recruiting class from Cedar Cliff.
Yeah, Cliff. Yeah.
Thank you. High school, local guy, and committed with Christian Hackenberg and that group when all hell was breaking loose at Penn State back in 2012 and hung on, stayed committed, which was great. Ended up having some injury issues, actually retired first, then transferred to UMass where he had a good senior season and now is very well involved and doing a great job on the media podcast. He's doing some color analyst for CBS Sports Network. So I enjoy following his work. This is the Adam Brenneman Bowl, but yes, no problems for Penn State here this weekend. They had a bye week last week, UMass this week, all in preparation for big noon kickoff in Columbus on October 21st. And we'll have a lot to talk about that next week.
The most interesting thing to talk about the UMass at Penn State game is the throwback uniforms that Penn State's going to be wearing.
There you go. Love those, by the way. Team go back to those uniforms every game. Numbers on the helmets, white shoes.
Yeah.
Bring it on. The stripe down the pants. Bring it on. If they went back to that for every game till Kingdom Come, I think it would be a good thing.
Yeah, as we kind of run down, on time here, probably me of all the look ahead games to week 8, obviously talking to Coach Milano, Downingtown West at Chester. That's a trap game. I mean, 11 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, nobody wants to play on Saturday. So, and especially playing, there in the shadows of the, of the bridge there on that field. I don't know. That could be really interesting. But also Harrisburg at State College. This is a rematch of the state semifinal last year that we did, Bob. What do you think?
Yes, well, you'll remember that State College won the regular season contest with a good understanding that they might see each other again. Harrisburg got them the second time around. So regardless of who wins this contest, although it is an enormous game and means a lot to both fan bases, there has to be that understanding that both teams are really good this year and they could see each other again that first weekend in December.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's going to be a really just what a contest. I guess maybe best regular season game in the state, I think. This week is that Harrisburg State College game. So
Marple Newtown, Strathaven too, by the way.
Yeah.
How real is Marple Newtown? I think Strathaven has proven themselves, but you wanna move up in the power ratings. It's the night of power ratings. You want to move up, Marple Newtown. This is a huge contest, and Delaware County will have their eyes fixated on that one.
Well, hopefully people, despite everything that happened during this broadcast, stayed fixated throughout the program. I think we had just about everything happen. We lost you, and then we had obviously trying to get Coach in, and I had to, basically stand on our head there for a while. I think they got, involved there, but I'll tell you what, we persevered and, made it through. And, a Monday edition here of, fresh set of downs, obviously without our buddy Dave Micah, but I can't thank you enough, my friend. I mean, this is an awful lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to talking Eastern PA football down the stretch with you, my man. What do you think?
I can't wait. I'm also really interested to see with your buddy Ian and the WPIAL show. I want to hear what you guys have to say about Pine Richland and Pittsburgh Central Catholic, because people are talking about Pittsburgh Central Catholic team is going to beat St. Joe's Prep in the state final. And all of a sudden, Ethan Pillar goes 56 carries, 300 how many yards? My goodness. How cool is that? That Pine Richland program just keeps on churning.
Yeah, you can never count those guys out. That's for sure. And one of the things that we did kind of change up a little bit is rather than just, a top five, regardless of classification, this week we start big school, small school top five. And I also bring in the matchup that the Whitfield fans need to pay attention to from the eastern part of the state. So that's a new feature as well. So listen, man, I know you're tight on time. Thanks so much. I mean, I can't believe you just jumped out of the car and jumped on a program, but that's Bob Long, man. He never misses a show.
No worse for the wear. Thrilled to be here.
All right. Well, listen, man, thanks a lot. And listen, we'll be back. We think next Tuesday, but we'll find out. It could be Monday, could be Tuesday. We appreciate everybody tuning in, and you can watch us on demand at any time here on YouTube. So for Bob Long, I'm Bruce Badgley. Thanks for